Alright, gonna go scriptless. I'm going to probably cut out a bunch of stuff. Here we go. Anyway, I was looking through the music theory Reddit and I found this thread called Learning How to Harmonize, and I just was like, hey, I want to harmonize. According to a comment from NCP77, this song is called Uti vår hage. Thank you for that because I definitely would not be able to have recognized this song. So I decided to take the harmonization of Throwaway A00, who wrote these chords symbols for each of these measures. And uh, I know this is probably a really bad left hand. I'm just writing it out just to have it there. It's pretty good, honestly. Like, if you remove this and just kind of like have all these tied together. You could have just a chord that's just hanging over from one measure to the next, and I think that's pretty nice. And now I'm just going to start uh, changing a bit of a small chord. So instead of a C, now we have an A minor 7. So let's go ahead and play that. And yeah, that's not like practically a tonal thing that usually gets played, but honestly, I don't really care too much about tonality. I like a bit of atonal. Well, this isn't really atonal, but you know what I mean. I just kind of like having chords that are a little bit more interesting. Man, I really wish I had a script. And now for the single chord. This is probably gonna sound really boring. It's pretty monotonous, but at the same time, it still works throughout all these chords because a bunch of these notes do revolve around a. Dang nabbit, my phone went off again. So, yeah, these kind of go E minor. This is just a passing tone here, and then this is a passing tone, this is a passing tone, and this technically could become a passing tone as well, or not a passing tone, but uh, it's a non-chord tone that can lead into another chord that could be E minor. I don't know exactly because I haven't looked at what comes next in the song, so I could probably look at that and then kind of present it, but honestly, it's just kind of just a showcase to show that E minor can be played throughout all of these chords here, all of these measures. Alright, so I looked through the sheet music for this song, and the transcription, I should say, and these are the chords that are usually put into this song, so I'll let it play. Honestly, I did not expect that last chord to be a bit more of a, or, oh geez, why can't I not remember the word for it? It's augmented. Why was I not able to do, or to think about that? Anyway, I just was kind of thrown off by that, but the rest of it is pretty much choral as this song is. It's a traditional Swedish song, and yeah, it's kind of interesting to see now, just kind of like writing it all out and then seeing it. Of course, the original is in F minor, not E minor, but you know, we worked with what we got. Yes, I did transcribe and transpose it. Or not transcribe, I just transposed it. Anyway, it was just kind of interesting to look through, and it does seem like it does have the common E on the bottom, and it just kind of makes it structurally in E minor, especially since this A minor over E is just a passing chord, or I don't remember the exact term for it. Actually, I'm gonna search that up because I want to be a little bit more musically analytical. Alright, kind of looked up that, and this is just called a second inversion. Pretty simple because usually a chord would kind of like, if it was an A on the bottom, then it would be no inversion. C is the third of the chord and would be a first inversion. And then an E on the bottom uh, would be the second inversion because it's the fifth. And usually second inversion chords are not usually used to uh, be a structured chord, but more of a passing chord, like I did mention earlier. It's just used to just kind of like, it's, how do I describe it? Anyway, I researched this. This is a second inversion chord. Second inversion chord is usually over the fifth, and in this instance, it's being used as an auxiliary chord, or a chord that just functions to just go back to, or, yeah, it's just a chord that just kind of like keeps the same tone of the, like, the first chord. So, for example, this is an E minor chord, and the root just stays the same. It's just that the chord above just shifts a little bit before going back to the root. And I do find it interesting that it's B minor 7 and not uh, like B7, where this is just raised, and then it would just go into the sixth of the chord, or sixth of this scale. But it's like, I wonder why the composer did that. Anyway, it's just kind of interesting. And then we've got E, and then interestingly, we have like an E minor 7 over B, which is another second inversion, but this one's actually having a descending bass line here. So this one is actually more of what I was talking about being a passing, where it just passes from B to A to G. And it's kind of interesting because, yeah, I don't know how much of this I'm actually going to keep in. I told you that I wasn't going to be analyzing, but at the same time, I just was like, this is interesting. I want to look at it. And then just having this augmented seventh chord at the end is just a very interesting thing because, excuse me, after it plays that chord, it goes into, I'm gonna write it down. Alright, so as you can see, it has a it has a 5 chord going into G, and one of the very interesting things is that this A sharp just leads really well into G because it acts kind of like a leading tone, just like the 7th of a G goes into the first of the G. This is just going into the G, or the B, I mean to say. And, that's kind of interesting that it has that. But on the top, it's like B, D, B. And let me go ahead and put these into the second voice. So, yeah, we just have we have a 5, 7 to 1 chord progression, which is like not a perfect cadence, but looking through this, he, authentic cadence. All right, authentic cadence. Yes, I do have I have a music theory book open just so I get terms correct, even if I might not be able to describe it that well in the video. So, uh, if you want to. I don't know if I should actually say that naturally. I'm just gonna cut that out. Anyway, I have a music theory book next to me. And I don't remember what I was gonna say next, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cut that out too. This part's gonna get a lot of cuts. Oh my gosh. Anyway, it's just kind of interesting to see that we have 2 leading tones going into here. We also might have a leading tone here, but usually it goes from C to B, but not in this instance. It just goes to the G. So yeah, this C just does not go down. Interesting. I don't know what else I'm going to talk about, so I'm gonna just cut to the next part. Now back to what I was actually trying to do. Uh, for this one, I decided to have a little bit of fun and decided that this bottom part should be in 6/8 instead of 3/4. There we go. So this bottom part is 6/8 and the top is 3/4. And yeah, let's just listen through. A little bit choppy, but I wasn't really listening, or I wasn't. Words. I'm actually editing this video as I'm doing these recordings. Like, I just do a section and then I just stop recording, put it into the video editor, do a few edits, and then go on with what I was doing. Anyway, uh, I don't remember what I was saying beforehand, but okay, yeah, never mind. Uh, So yeah, this bottom part makes it really choppy sounding because it's completely offbeat, and it just kind of gives a small little back and forth, except doesn't probably doesn't work as well as it could. Eh, it just takes a little bit to get used to, but you know, not much I have to say for this one. I just wanted to see how it was going to sound because like I like experimenting. I like playing around with time signature stuff, as you probably could have told from my previous video. Insert card here. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next one. Moving on to the next one. I am going a little bit silly with this one. Every note in the melody is the root note, except for this last chord. You'll see what I mean. I couldn't resist. When I made the mistake of keeping the A, or not A, the D sharp from this B chord here. Oh, I just realized my cursor doesn't get recorded. Anyway, when I got this D sharp and had it play here, I was like, it's jazzy. I like it. I'm keeping it. And so I did. Anyway, a couple of notes that I want to make about this one. It's kind of interesting to have all these parallel fifths because, tonally, you don't want parallel fifths in like classical pieces, but parallel fifths have their time and place, but it does make things sound awkward, especially with this G to F sharp diminished to E minor. It just kind of has that weird sound because it's not a perfect parallel fifth on this area. It's a G to the F sharp and a D to the C, which is not a perfect fifth. It goes from this perfect fifth to a suspended fifth? Oh, jeez, I forgot the term for that. It's a diminished fifth. Okay, that's what it is. Anyway, so it goes from a perfect fifth to a diminished fifth back to a perfect fifth. So it makes it sound pretty awkward. So I'm going to change this to an F sharp minor chord to see how it sounds. So let's go ahead and do that. It still sounds really weird. It's just that because of the seventh, it's just the seventh chord is not meant to be passed through like this. Like the 1 to 7 to 6 like this is usually not meant to be like that. Let me put it to an F sharp major chord to kind of show off how it just sounds weird. It's just, no matter how you kind of present this, a pure seventh chord is not the way you want to go with this. So if I were to write this, excuse me, I would actually be using a D over F sharp here because this D uh, leads in pretty well into this E here, a lot better than the C going down to B. It just blends a little bit better. So, yeah, that's just something I just noticed. Uh, well, not something I noticed. It's just something that I have played around with before. And so this is now like if the G was the first chord or like the root chord of this scale, it would be like a 5 or not 5. It would be a 1 to a 5 to a 6, making another deceptive cadence. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. I still love that last chord. Alright, this next one, I decided to do a walking bass downwards, just continually going down. So it starts with an E to a D to a C to a B to an A to a G to an F sharp, and then I just started structuring chords around that. So let's go ahead and listen to this. Yeah, it's not the best, honestly. Mostly just there. Hmm. So how would I fix this? I think I might actually do that and just, my phone's going off again. Just do that and just kind of have like a passing chord here where it's not really a chord as much as a chordoid or chordoid? Is it chordoid? Chord, chordioid. It's just okay, so I'm going to see if I can lessen the amount of video editing I'm doing, which is probably not as much. Anyway, a chordioid is a chord that uh, it's a chord that does not have all the chords or all the notes needed to make a full chord. Or is it the... Wait, hold on, I'm reading this Wikipedia article. I remember watching a video that was talking about chordioids and how it's talks about incomplete chords and how like chordioids are just chord tones that don't make a chord. For example, this one's just like a E and the B. So I guess this is more of not a chordioid, but just an interval. This is just a perfect fifth interval, not a chordioid. And it still fits within this C major 7 because it uses the fifth, or not fifth, the third and the seventh. And yeah, it's just a very much transitionary chord over anything. Kind of like, well, not like this one because, well, this one just uses the first, the fifth, and the seventh, and has a parallel octave. And I guess this isn't the seventh actually. But yeah, the reason why I labeled it as a B minor over F sharp is because in later on in this measure it does go to a D to finish off this chord. So it's kind of like a suspended interval until it gets into this chord. So yeah, just a small little experiment to try to like see if we could get that walking bass line that just continues to descend. If it was like, uh, if this was being written, this F sharp would usually go to a B because it wants to try to go back to home, which is the minor chord. So it would probably be like uh, there. Just kind of like have that sound. So, yeah, just a fun little experiment. Like I said, I'm just playing around with harmonies, and this is definitely not structured, as you can tell. I'm just having fun. Time to go a little bit more fun. Uh, I use Quintal and Quartal type of chords in this version. Didn't label any chords because, well, they're not really. Well, I guess you can analyze the chords, but I didn't feel like it. Anyway, it's jazzy. I had a little bit too much fun with that. Anyway, uh, I guess to describe what I did a little bit more into detail, I took the first note of each measure and then I just kind of went down. So this E to A is a fifth, to D is a fifth, and to G is a fifth. And then this G to a D is a fourth, to A is a fourth, to E is a fourth. Then for this one, it was G to a C, which is a fifth, to an F natural, which is a fifth, and then B flat, which is a fifth. And then here is a B to an F sharp, to a C sharp, to a G sharp. Honestly, I just love Quintal and Quartal harmonies because it's just like, how do I even describe it? There's just this openness that just makes it flow really well. So, yeah, I don't have much else to say, so let's go on to the next one. Alright, gonna get back to what the original post posted, and alright, so I've been having a little bit too much fun, kind of going a little bit off track and doing my own thing. So now we're just gonna start having a little bit more fun with chord substitutions. Last time I kinda had replaced this with uh, A minor 7. So I should bring up the tonal uh, chord structure because this is a traditional song, which means it follows along a little bit more closely to, well, traditional Western harmony. So, alright, so I've brought up the harmonic tonal progression, and these, I'll put it up on the screen. So, basically, what all of these kind of refer to is how all of these have their own chords that are attached to them. So, with Roman numerals, for example, this is 1, and this is the 4, this is the 6, and then this is the 3. Wait, not in this case though, because it does seem like it's more progressing towards a G major instead of an E minor for this fourth bar. So instead, uh, this is the 6, this is the 2, this is the 4, and this is the 1. So let me go ahead and start labeling this. Alright, so I labeled all of these, and so in the uh, in the chord progressions, a lot of the times 4 can go into 1, and but usually it's the dominant 5 or 7 diminished, because the 5 and 7 diminished are dominant, while the 4 and the 2 chords are predominant. And then the 3 and 6 chords are called tonic prolongation. It just means that they are just like the precursors. Predominance can be used at the end of a structure, and so can dominant, but mostly when it comes down to it, we want to always try to land on the tonic. So we're going to start doing some substitutions here. So I'm kind of looking through this because a lot of this is kind of more limited. So this can be part of the C. This can be an, well, this can also just be like a C or an A minor 7, or it can even be a G. So we're going to go ahead and just clear, or should I clear it all out? Yeah, let's just clear it all out real quick. So when it comes down to it, we want to make sure that we can have chords that match the notes that are within these. It doesn't have to be perfect because some of these can be like passing tones, like this A. We can just focus on the third here, or we can focus on the fifth here. But it's a lot easier to focus on thirds as they're easier to structure chords from because this, I'll just go ahead and just start writing it down. So this E and C can fit E major, it can fit C major, or sorry, E minor, C major. It can also do uh, F, or not F, C diminished, or I guess this is a half diminished. This can also be a C sharp diminished 7th, and C sharp half diminished 7th. And then like I said, it can also be an A minor 7. So there's actually quite a few chords now that I'm kind of looking at it. And I could also just do an E diminished chord. So there's actually a lot more options than I thought there are. And I just realized I never changed this back to... Let me fix that real quick. I can't believe I've been writing this music down and I just never changed this back to 3/4. Uh, anyway. Um, so yeah, it's always good to just kind of like find thirds within these chords to make it easier to find things. Um, I think I'm going to go ahead and do B minor. Oh, and also don't be worried about like being limited to like the full measure. When it comes down to it, you can also just be like, well, you saw in previous examples that I used that you can, or uh, I made or slash used, that do change chords on certain beats. So it does not have to be a full measure thing. So for example, this could be like E minor to like A minor to back to E minor, and then we can go to G, and then this could be a D, and then go back to G. So it really depends on, like, there's a lot of openness when it comes to, like, when the chords can change. As you saw, or in a previous example, I also just kind of used, like, the 6/8 thing that you saw just earlier that I had to fix. So right now, I'm going to make this so it ends with B minor. And I am going to make this the target chord. And uh, let's see. Or should I? No. Actually, I am going to make it a B. No. This D would. Um, hmm. That's not tonal though. I I need to just keep it at B minor. Yeah, when it comes to harmonization, you can experiment a lot with things, and it does take a lot of thinking. You will probably like have to fix a few things as you go along because it can be easy to slip out of the usual harmonic uh, tonal flow or tonic progression. Um, for now, I'm going to go ahead and work my way backwards. That's another tactic you can use to make sure it flows a lot easier, because if you just kind of like go forward, sometimes you will find yourself uh, um, just kind of like writing chords on the spot, and sometimes it might not lead to the expected results. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it though, because sometimes you can come up with some really unique chords that way. But for the purposes of what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to just work my way backwards. So this one has a G and A. So I think I'm going to focus on just this A. And now I have to think about what A can fit into B minor, I should say. So going to look at the dominant stuff. I've just realized um, this A does not really flow that well into B minor because uh, usually when it comes to dominant chords, you want to have the seventh of the chord you're going to, or the seventh of the uh, key that you're in to be uh, raised like it was in a major chord. So because it's an A, it's not completely tonic. So that's what I mean by uh, you can't really just, you're going to do a lot of fixes because sometimes you just have these chords. I mean, yeah, you'll just have a bunch of these mistakes here and there that you'll have to correct. I mean, I still want to see if I can put it into B because while it cannot be a dominant, maybe a predominant four chord? Um, no. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, predominant can go into the dominant. Uh, because that's kind of like the flow of how the chords can go. So instead of focusing on that A, I'm just going to have an E minor. I just realized this was not written as a chord. Um, oops. Um, If I did it like that, though. Actually, I'll focus more on the chords and then worry about, like, making it more fluent. So next up, let's go ahead and have this. Once again, it's like an E and a G. So let me see. Is there a tonal prolonging or prolongation that fits this? Um, let's see. I guess a G? But then there's that E. So let's see. There's also the D. Hmm. Yeah, this is not going to work because this F sharp is clearly a passing tone because of the length of these two notes. The G and the E are longer than this F sharp, which means that this F sharp would not get enough time to, like, be substantial in the big chords that happens in the bass. So it's like, hmm. Yeah, this is not structured to be in a B minor thing. So that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes melodies are just structured in a way that they are very much prominently in a certain key. So, um, yeah, I think I'm going to actually make this, oh yeah, I guess suspended chords can work. Probably not for this one, but yeah, we're actually going to end with G. Hmm. All right, let's see. Well, I could end in G, or I can end in D. But that still kind of like indicates if this is G, that this is just a half cadence. So, I guess I'm okay with that. maybe. Yeah, then you know what? Let's just make this all major. We're going to see if this works. I don't think so, because these chords are just... I was gonna just kind of like go from... Just a reminder that 7 chords like these usually go into the 1. Um, I could also just... This C sharp will always just kind of go to a D, because this is... And then, like, this goes like that. But that wouldn't work in this type of context. So, yeah. Oh, wait, something interesting I can do here. Because, yeah, I was talking about suspended chords. This uses this all the notes, but it also just kind of leads into this. And this is a suspended or a D suspended fourth, because this D is supposed to be an F sharp, and it just kind of holds out uh, a suspension to kind of like lead into the next part. Creates tension. That's the word I'm looking for. It creates a small bit of tension. So D sus4. Alright. And this is probably going to just be a... Yeah, a C chord, C, and then since we're kind of like in G, this is the 5, this is the 4, and next, or the tonal prolongation does include the 6th chord, which is E minor in this case. So, yeah, unfortunately, I'm not avoiding, like, uh, yeah, I'm not avoiding any minor chords. I wanted to see if I could make it all major. And I suppose I could if I did C throughout all of this. Actually, let's try that out real quick. Yeah, because of this A, no, not because of the A, because of how the line moves, it's still going to sound like it's in like E minor. despite having the C. And it's just mostly because, yeah, actually it is because of these non-chord tones. Because it just kind of has that, uh, that's what it is. These two, or these three notes at the start, uh, are part of the, wait, are they part of the minor pentatonic scale? Let me check. Pentatonic scale. I don't know why I was being, why I'm, why I forgot what the minor pentatonic was, but basically this goes up, or these do use notes from the pentatonic, and because of that, it does give a strong feeling of a minor key despite the C chord on the bottom. So if I wanted to make this major sounding, would that work? Of course it's not going to work because of the, like I was explaining earlier, the F sharp is just not prominent enough to be like a central tone, or at least it would be really difficult to make it that way. So alright. So let's go ahead and just E minor. So this E minor can be a C, and this C can be an E, and then yeah. Anyway, I was trying for something, but it didn't work out. So it's a little bit different from what the original kind of looked like, but it's still kind of similar. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's pretty good for what I wanted to try to do. Um, yeah. I think I'm going to just say that this is, yeah, that I'm kind of done with what I wanted to do. Of course, there are a lot of different things you can experiment with this song, as I have kind of shown previously. So, yeah, I just wanted to have a little bit of fun because, learning how to harmonize, there's many, many different ways to harmonize things. And it's all about the experimentation. It's all about trying to learn what ways to go about it. Oh, wait. No, I'm not done. Oops. There we go. That's actually something that's kind of unique. Um, Actually, would that function? I feel like it is going to function, but it's just a little bit too gimmicky or too condensed in a way because in E minor, um, if E minor was the 1, then it would be a 4, 5, and a 6. But yeah, then this 6 would turn into a 4, which would go into 5. I feel like it might be too quick of a transition, though, of to kind of like go from or modulate from one key to the other. But it's just a little play around experiment. Actually, if I ah yeah, that's a lot better because then it gives time for it to relax into the C chord so that when it does transition or does modulate to the new key, it doesn't sound too broken. And also, it's just an interesting thing to have the chord, like, have the chords, like, anticipate the next measure's chord in such a regard. So, yeah, like I said, harmonization, it's a bunch of experimentation, and, you know, sometimes it can be a little bit of fun just kind of seeing what you can come up with and yeah, playing around with it. There's a lot of things you can discover along the way. So, yeah. I guess this is my outro for this video. I could bring up Audacity and, you know, do another recording and put pictures to it, but I wanted to make this a short video, and somehow it turned out to be almost 30 minutes. Or maybe it's past 30 minutes, I don't know. I'm still going to edit it. But last time I was like looking over, it's at the 27-minute mark that I finished the last one. So yeah, this one's gonna be a little bit longer. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to have fun with this, kind of show off some different harmonization, just play around with it, and it's it's not supposed to be like an analysis video, and I, as you probably could tell, I did have to research some things because and put some like edit editor notes into the video because I just was not able to think of the terms correctly or properly and wasn't able to describe it as well. So, if you really want to learn music theory, I will also link a website that does have some music theory materials that you can look at. And if you want to learn more about harmonization, it's always good to just like scour other people's places because other people's channels, other people's sources, books, all those things. There's a lot of things out there. And so, yeah, uh, I don't even know who this is directed to. I was just mostly doing this for fun. But yeah, yeah.